A lot of people can want to buy a new car, whether it's a Tesla or not, but if they literally can't afford it because of the higher interest rates, then they're done. They're cooked. They're not walking through the door of the dealership. They're not picking up the phone to buy the vehicle. In this video, I'm revealing how Legacy Automotive Dealerships' honeymoon has come to an end. Most don't even realize it, and it's going to be ugly. I'm Josh West, and this is Josh West 24/7. I'm a 15-year veteran of Legacy Automotive. I sold thousands of cars and trucks in my career, and I managed and grew a used car department by over 500%. And I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the current state of Legacy Automotive. Over the last 4 years, Legacy Auto dealerships have made more money than they have ever before in their history. The combination of inflation, the scamdemic, and chip shortages came together to create the perfect storm to put the customer on their knees. Basically, anybody could sell cars for the last 4 years. You didn't need any amount of skill or talent. You literally just took orders and made more money than you ever did before in your career. I often said over the last couple of years that even monkeys could sell cars in these conditions. They're literally just repetitively taking orders. It didn't matter what the prices were. They could add fees, inflate the prices, and customers would still pay it. But now the market is changing and salespeople are not making the money that they once were. Why? Because they weren't using any skill to make that big money. Now I'm hearing stories left and right of salespeople resorting to unethical behavior in order to supplement and prop up artificially their level of income. And that's a big problem for dealerships, dealer principals, sales staff, and most importantly, their customers. But even in a drawn-back market, there will always be a small percentage of skilled salespeople that continue to make big money. Perhaps not as much as the last few years, but it will definitely be an outsized portion compared to their peers. Now, as sales volume drops for internal combustion engine vehicles, electric vehicles, on the other hand, continue to rise and increase in popularity. And you say, well, why is that? Well, it's very simple. Even though prices continue to rise, customers can justify the purchase of the electric vehicle because of the significant savings in fuel and maintenance. The reasons to buy a new internal combustion engine vehicle are few and far between, and that's because the technology is plateaued and there's really not anything new coming to market. So unless the vehicle was written off or for whatever reason they needed and had to get into a new vehicle, customers are just not choosing to purchase because the prices are so high. Now, it's not just high prices that are causing this anomaly, but it's also the rise in interest rates. The low interest rate honeymoon has ended as well. The days of financing or leasing a car at 1, 2, or even 3% are long gone. Now dealerships are having to use interest rates in the 7, 8, 9, 10% range. So you tell me, what environment is easier to sell a car in? Lower interest rates have far more impact on a customer's decision to purchase than simply the purchase price. You see, anything that's financed in that deal is affected by these interest rates. A lot of drivers out there, in fact, I would dare to say the majority of drivers out there who have a financed vehicle are looking at some sort of negative equity in their loan, meaning that the vehicle is worth less than what they owe on the current loan. And so what happens in a case like that where the customer wants to trade in the vehicle is that negative equity, or that difference between what they owe and what the vehicle's worth, gets rolled into the next loan. The problem comes is when the next loan's interest rate is significantly higher, therefore that drives their payments significantly higher as well. The issue that comes with higher interest rates is that these people can simply no longer afford to trade in their vehicle with negative equity. And generally, folks with negative equity tend to be, on the trend, the ones that trade in their vehicle more often, and usually that's how they got the negative equity to begin with. The other factor that's exacerbating this problem is the fact that most people that purchased their vehicle over the last couple of years paid a significantly inflated price for it. And as vehicle prices begin to fall because demand is falling, well, you're going to have even more negative equity than what normally would have been if the market had just carried on the trajectory that it was heading on from a few months ago. This makes it very difficult to sell vehicles simply to people that can't afford the payments. I'll give you an example. On a vehicle finance of about $35,000, the difference in cost of borrowing from, let's say, 3% to 10%, which is kind of the swing that we've had over the last several months, is approximately 20%. That means that the average customer is looking at 20% less buying power, meaning that they can't afford, based on their budget, they can't afford the same vehicle that they once could, meaning that they have to buy a vehicle that's 20% less value than what they could several months ago with the lower interest rates. But that does not take into consideration the profits that dealerships depend on from third-party aftermarket sales or after-sale products, things like extended warranties and rust proofing, fabric protection, paint protection. I've done a whole video on how dealerships make profit from the back end of the deal, and I'll put a card in the corner up on the top here for reference. By having a higher interest rate, it makes those extra products even more unaffordable. Therefore, the likelihood of the customer purchasing them is even less, which drives down profits for dealerships. So not only is the dealership making less money on the purchase of the vehicle, but they're also making a lot less money on the back end of the deal as well. Never mind the fact that the trade-in that they would be taking in on that deal is in a state of decline as prices retreat on used cars. I mean, let's face it, affordability has changed dramatically and drastically. Selling a high-priced vehicle with added fees, over MSRP, tons of after-sale products was easy with low interest rates. Now, with interest rates soaring, prices have nowhere to go but down. However, there is pressure pushing back on new vehicle sales because the cost of transportation, production, and advertising has gone up because of inflation. Basically, it's creating a perfect storm for dealerships. There's great difficulty ahead for dealership salespeople, both new and used. Used car prices are at all-time highs, but prices do seem to be peaking. Car Dealership Guy on Twitter speculates that we may have reached an inflection point. Let's take a look here. He claims that used car prices have increased 8.7% in the first quarter of 2023, which is the largest increase since 2021. Of course, it's wild. Some are saying in the industry that they're so back, which of course is absolutely not the case, but there are so many dealers out there that are completely delusional. It says here, while he's not expecting a significant decline in used car prices, see his other thread, a couple newly released Cox Automotive indicators suggest that used car prices are starting to chill out. When sales start to cool, price cuts typically begin, which is true. Basically, there's a glimpse of hope for consumers. Of course, lower prices, but we need lower prices to offset the higher interest rates. Here's what he says regarding dealership purchasing behavior. The sales conversion at dealer auctions has declined near the end of March. Yes, we knew that. Sales conversion at dealer auctions has declined near the end of March. This means March started as a seller's market at dealer auctions, and by month's end, conditions transitioned into a buyer's market. Well, that was mainly driven by having not enough inventory, and so dealers were just trying to put something on the lots, and they were overpaying wildly. In fact, I saw many instances where dealers were paying more at the auction at a wholesale level, even before reconditioning costs, than what they would be putting it on their lot for. And of course, just depending on that back end finance reserve, selling the after sale products and getting that customer to bring a trade in, maybe they could under allow on the trade in or bring the trade in at less than what it is at market value and try and recoup some of the losses there, and basically just try to fabricate and create business out of thin air. He goes on to say, indicator number 2, price retention at dealer auctions dropped by 20 basis points in March. All this means that if the market price of vehicle XYZ was $20K, along a term known as MMR by industry insiders, then the actual market clearing price for the same vehicle was $19,960, $40 difference. Okay, yes, but it's saying that prices are averaging down rather than averaging up. I personally think prices will begin to trend down. I agree with Car Dealership Guy that this is a pretty clear indicator. I see a lot of other indicators in the market as well, ones that are kind of more gut feeling in some cases, and some are just what I'm hearing from insiders in the industry, in Legacy Auto, and what they're telling me of what some of the situations are. Dealerships sitting on inventory where they're completely upside down, and they'll get to a point where they get frustrated and they just end up cutting and slashing prices to unload this inventory.
I got $199. I've got $799. I've got $16.99. Cheap prices. $14. $11. $249. $3. My prices are so small you can barely see them. This is some small prices.
The fact of the matter is that as prices come down, more people can literally afford the vehicle. The majority of the car industry is driven by debt-based purchases, meaning people that either lease or finance their vehicle. The only person who's been genuinely addressing affordability in the automotive market seems to be Elon Musk. Let's take a look and see what he says here on Twitter. Whole Mars Catalog says the idea is to make the cars more affordable, not to spend money on advertising so that you can make them more expensive. Well, he's responding to an issue where they're saying, oh, Tesla should advertise, but that's not the point we're getting at here today. The point here is that making cars more affordable makes them attainable to a larger base. And as they become more affordable, that attainability grows exponentially. It's not a linear curve, it's an exponential curve. Elon responds and says, so many well-off critics don't understand that demand at scale is limited by affordability. There's plenty of demand for our products, meaning Tesla vehicles, but if the price is more money than people have, that demand is irrelevant. There's plenty of demand for our products, meaning Tesla vehicles, but if the price is more money than people have, that demand is irrelevant. And he's totally right. Because a lot of people can want to buy a new car, whether it's a Tesla or not, but if they literally can't afford it because of the higher interest rates, then they're done. They're cooked. They're not walking through the door of the dealership. They're not picking up the phone to buy the vehicle. Prices must come down. And I believe that's what we're heading towards. The market has not completely gotten used to these higher interest rates. The full impact of it won't be felt until more time passes, allowing it to sink in and inventory levels rise. Overall, more pain for dealerships, both new and used. One of the other observations that I've made is that there's a wild imbalance of inventory comparing import and domestic brands. Drive past your local Stellantis or Ram, Jeep, Chrysler dealership and you'll see that their inventory is huge. Their lots are packed with vehicles. Drive past your local GM store, again, packed. Drive past your local Lincoln dealership and you'll see they have got lots of cars. However, take a cruise past your local Hyundai store, Honda, or especially Toyota, and you'll see that they have hardly any cars on their lot. And the problem with this is that they're still experiencing inventory shortages. Now, I don't know if those shortages are fabricated by the manufacturers or if they're just naturally occurring, but I can tell you that it's wreaking havoc on the new and used car markets. Here's an article right here of General Motors shuttering one of their truck plants. Why would they do this? Because inventory levels are rising and they want to maintain that scarcity to keep those prices up. You see, the manufacturers have been enjoying juicy margins and lots of profit over the last several years as well, and they're feeling the pinch that the honeymoon is coming to an end. But one thing's for certain, the manufacturers won't go down without a fight. They're going to get their profits before the dealerships. So they're happy to starve out the dealerships, starve out the salespeople, as long as they maintain those higher prices. But the reality is that full control comes down to the customer and where they're choosing to spend their money and where they're choosing to open up their pocketbook. So what are my thoughts on this whole rigmarole of what's happening with prices and demand and inventory and supply, and the fact that this big old honeymoon of profits is winding down to an end for legacy automotive car dealerships? Dealerships need to get lean and mean real fast. Cut the fat. Any salesperson or sales manager who's just been floating along for the last few years, riding coattails, needs to go, and they need to go now. Inventory levels have never been so important. And so whoever's looking after ordering of the vehicles and maintaining inventory levels, choosing which models and trim levels and options and colors and things like that get ordered, their job is absolutely paramount and must be handled with absolute precision. Electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles must have preeminence in that store's lineups. Yes, I said plug-in hybrid vehicles because there are brands out there such as the Stellantis lineup that don't even offer anything that's fully electric, which is absolutely ridiculous, I agree, but at least a plug-in hybrid is better than having absolutely nothing to sell. They need to have preeminence, they need to be pushed to the forefront, they need to be on display in the stores and in the dealership's marketing material. They must be known in the community as being plug-in friendly and future forward. They must develop that reputation in the community they serve. Those customers who want to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle, they're going to do it anyways. Dealerships need to implement technology and streamline their operations as soon as possible. And they must maximize customer satisfaction, not only in the sales process, but in the service department as well. Why? Because in slower economic times, customers are far more discretionary with how they spend their money. Additionally to that, the competition that dealerships are facing from direct-to-consumer brands such as Tesla is mounting and only getting more fierce. Tesla has an incredible advantage in sales and service through technology. They even write their own operations software. Dealerships that are relying on old, archaic, analog-type architecture for looking after their clients, following up with leads, ensuring customer sales and service experiences are perfectly smooth, the ones that are running on analog are going to get wiped out. The ugly truth is that lazy dealerships and undisciplined salespeople are about to get... I worked in the auto industry through the 2008-2009 financial crisis, and I can tell you that only the strong survive and only the strong thrive. And I've got lots more perspective and insight coming up on Legacy Automotive, but you'll have to wait till the next video.